Welcome back to 8 Cubes. I'm KMBest. He's Lambie Series, and we are here in the immediate aftermath of the OTA to assess the damage and try to rebuild. We're going to start with Thanos, who has the Agatha text now of starting in your hand without costing you a card. Lambie, you've been the Thanos guy before. Are you going to be the Thanos guy again?
I mean, the moment they announced this change, I just could hear the uproar in everybody's Discord of everybody's Thanos community is just going crazy. They're just like, oh, Thanos is back. Like every time there is a positive change to Thanos, like when the Mind Stone went back to 1 and all that kind of thing, right? Like everybody's just like, oh, Thanos is back. But I think we need to look at the realistic part of this whole situation is I feel like they allowed Thanos to be this way right now and reverted quite a few things because they know that it wouldn't be out of control, you know. Like I think they know, and we have to give it to second dinner sometimes because I feel like they always kind of just know, right? They have all the data and they have all the testing, internal testing and stuff like that. So from what I've seen from Thanos so far, like I know people there have been certain new releases that could be played in Thanos, you know, ever since like Thanos became like it became worse and then new cards came out and then now it became like a bit more playable again, I guess. And then like we want to talk about some of the new cards that work with Thanos right now, right? Like I've seen a lot of people mostly do the Surtur thing because there's been so many like big and high cost cards you can play in Thanos deck. So like I keep talking about like possibilities of Thanos, right? But I didn't actually say why I feel that it's actually still like maybe not really there yet, you know? Because the problem
Yeah.
with Thanos right now is I think even though they release some of the like they turn some of the valves off, they let some of the power come back in. I think that the game has been power crept a bit since it's in its prime, you know. Like Agent Venom, we'll talk a bit later. Agent Venom is still a thing right now. There's so many decks right now that like can cheat mana, can like make things cost less or put like tons of power on the board, you know. Like I feel like as much as Thanos is like everyone's favorite thing to do for a very long time, if you look at Marvel Snap at like a overall scope right now, there's so many decks and so many cards that just does Thanos things better than playing Thanos, and Thanos is an 18 card deck which will never change, you know. So I feel like even if we got back that like one draw, quote unquote, it doesn't change the fact that Thanos has been power crept like out of the game right now.
I think the other thing is Thanos was always at its best when it was doing something fundamentally unfair with the Time Stone ramping into something gross, usually like ramping into a Professor X, right? Professor X doesn't work that way anymore. Time Stone doesn't work that way anymore. Then Thanos was at its best when it was doing something with Blob, which was, pretty good, but that's not what Blob is anymore. Alioth, again, there's other ways for people to do this kind of Alioth thing right now. Why would you play Thanos if you're trying to like win one lane, then play Alioth on another? If you are going to just do that with a Wiccan deck, right? The major thing that I noticed with Thanos is that everyone is playing it and none of the decks seem all that good. The best one to me felt like the Surtur Scar deck, but with less ability to have your nut draw of Surtur into Scar.
Yes.
And so you just ended up with a deck that everyone is playing and it's losing a lot, which is really fun right now because it means that we're sort of breaking out of the sort of metagame triangle we were in. But I don't know how long that's going to last unless someone can figure out a build of this deck that isn't kind of mid. And I'm really hoping someone can, but I don't necessarily hold out a lot of hope. I've tried the Big Tens version and the Destroy version, and neither one of them inspire a lot of belief in me that this will stick around past day one.
Yeah, I think the overarching like context as to why Thanos is it they let it come back a little bit with very little fear, and why I also think that it's not gonna be like a big force in the meta and all that is because like I think all the decks in the game or most decks that are good in the game does what Thanos could do but better right now, you know. It's kind of unfortunate, but at the same time it's just natural progression away from Thanos always being a thing, you know. I feel like we've outgrown the fact that Thanos can always be a thing. It's been like 2 years, man.
So let's talk about Agent Venom, now a 2/5 that sets your deck to 3. First of all, good call by them not making it married to Cerebro anymore. I think it's very clear that
Yes.
nobody was actually doing that, and as long as they kept those numbers the same, they were going to be artificially limiting their ability to balance this card. So I'm glad they've demonstrated a willingness to make those numbers diverge. That is a very good thing. Now, in addition to that, I will say I think that of the three major Agent Venom decks, and here I'm going to be a little bit specific, I think the major Agent Venom decks before the patch were the Iron Man deck, the Bounce deck, and the Move Bounce deck. Of those three, the Iron Man deck was hurt the most by a lot. I think it's also possible that the Sarah deck was hurt very dramatically, but it didn't have a lot of presence in the metagame, so I'm not counting it among those three. Of the other two, though, both versions of the bounce deck, in my opinion, they still want to be playing this card. This card is still excellent in those decks. The more you are, interestingly, as a move bounce gamer, the more you are a Frigga gamer, the more you are an Agent Venom gamer now as well, because being able to move a Human Torch a couple times and copy it is basically exactly what you're trying to do. That, I think, is almost locked in my head. There's a possibility that you'd rather have Doctor Strange, but I like the combination of Agent Venom and Frigga in that list. And for normal bounce, it's still hitting everything in the deck. The only card it's not hitting is Beast, which it already wasn't hitting. And so it's already still at least even or better on basically everything. All your bounce targets. Silver Sable is 0 now. It's even better to hit her. You get to hit things like the Hood. It's just a very good card in that archetype still. And nobody ever that cares about points is going to get mad at a 2/5.
Yep. So the thing about Agent Venom is that like we basically mentioned what I wanted to say as well, which is like in bounce decks, this card is still super premium because at the end of the day, when you are buffing one cost cards, right, you're not just like adding stats, you're literally doubling or tripling their stats, right? And like one cost cards are so cheap anyway. So obviously a 1/4 is always definitely gonna be better than 1/3. But like most of these like one cost cards have like compounding effects either way, right? Like they will grow after you buff them. And the thing is you're buffing a one cost card, so like it's actually very like low cost to begin with. It doesn't really hurt like the fact that it's like a bit less in power because it was like kind of overpowered with the buff anyway. So I think that Agent Venom is definitely here to stay because as long as you're buffing the cheap stuff, the impact will still definitely be there. Obviously, the Iron Man one is huge, right? Because Iron Man was one of the reasons why Agent Venom was super strong as well. Like Agent Venom made the Iron Man deck like way over the top, you know. And I feel like it's firstly a good thing they didn't change Iron Man because that would be a clear mistake. Like if they change Iron Man, I think every new player will rage. Okay, so good thing they didn't change Iron Man at all. And secondly, I feel like Agent Venom still is very playable simply because that like it still has so many good targets that like hurt a bit, yes, that they are no longer 4 power, but at 3 they are still insane. So I personally think that like this card's gonna be here for a while. I don't really understand at all why this is a 2/5.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like it doesn't make sense. Do you guys know there's this card called Maximus? It's a 2/6 that loses you the game if you play it on curve. I feel like Agent Venom is like it's a 2/5 that wins you the game even if you don't play it on curve. And then there's 2/6 that loses you the game when you play it on curve. So like I don't know, man. If they really wanted to make Agent Venom or like buff everything to only 3, it could really just stay at 2/4. Like
Yeah.
it's still gonna be played, you know? It's still gonna be played because the effect is insane.
I'll tell you what, I feel like while it was predictable to see people being like, oh, they waited until after the season pass to nerf it, it's like, guys, this card is still insane. If you bought this
Yes.
card, you are still getting your money's worth. Like there is almost nothing to complain about here in terms of like bait and switch. If you think this card is now like slightly more balanced, but you are still running it in most bounce decks you could ever even conceive of. It is a core part of that. And it's sort of I have a little bit of worry for the Iron Man deck, but I don't think that's a bad deck by any means right now all of a sudden. And so it's like, I don't think there's really anything to complain about on this one. Like, I think, honestly, you have a bigger shot at complaining correctly about Surtur, and we'll get to that one in a second. But, like, right now, Agent Venom felt like maybe the strongest card in the game to me after the nerf.
Yeah, I just want to add like one more thing since we kept talking about like the Iron Man deck being hit the hardest, right? I actually tried the Iron Man deck like after, and I was like, okay, yes, it's less points, but like if I get the Agent Venom on the Iron Man off into the Mystique, which is a 3/3, I probably still win like 99% of the games that I would have won even before the nerf. So like it's still insane. It's just that we are just like grasping at straws here. Like obviously because Iron Man's effect compounds, right? So like a 4 is way better than a 3. But 5/3 Iron Man, 3/3 Mystique copying Iron Man is
It's not
insane.
bad. Surtur lost a point and Scar lost a point, and I saw a lot of people talking about how this won't be consequential. I actually think it does matter in certain aspects. I'm not going to say it's like the most impactful thing ever. The gameplay of those cards didn't change, but it does mean that, like, I don't know, there is a limit to the amount of power this deck can output per space. And playing against that is actually meaningful, and reducing that is actually meaningful. And I'm not saying that this is suddenly going to be a deck that sucks, because frankly, I still think it's very good. But every amount of power taken off of the main game plan in this list is a point of power that it might need to try to get back out of what is currently a tech slot, right? Right now, a lot of the strength of the deck is that it is a baseline core of these tens and Surtur and Scar, and then it is also allowed like 4 slots of tech. And if decks start going over the top, it might not be allowed those slots anymore. It might need to actually put power on the board. And that is something that is very interesting as a dynamic. I think a lot of people are down on this nerf mattering. I don't think it matters in the macro, but I think it matters a lot in the micro. A lot of individual games will have this make an impact in them.
Yeah, I also want to say that like there's been some talk about the Searcher nerf also actually being like not impactful enough, because I think one of the biggest concerns with Searchers that because currently at 3-4, right, it can still get to a 310 and then discount Scar, which I think I think that's actually probably like the biggest deal for me. Like the fact that it still can do that, the fact that it still can do that makes the deck like I guess still a bit relevant. And people want it to go to 3-3, but the funny thing is I don't think it will happen, because that totally just like removes the ability for the deck to function, right? And I think the devs, they know as well. I'm not quoting anyone. I'm just saying I assume that they know as well, that they know that this deck is not over the top. Like I don't think leaving the deck as is, that the fact that the Searcher can like discount a Scar is making the deck like too broken for the meta. Because like you mentioned as well, this deck has like very finite points. Like it's very like that's it. This is my max power output. And if you lose that Searcher Scar interaction, I don't even think the deck's gonna be like anywhere near good, So
Yeah.
I'm totally fine with the deck being the way it is right now as well. And also you mentioned, right, this deck is really very, very clear cut. Like you need to play an X amount of tens, and then with X amount of tens, you are also locked into X amount of tech, So I feel like this deck is very pre-structured, and it's also very finite in points. It feels bad when your opponent's Searcher keeps growing and growing and growing and growing. But that's just because you see it. But at the end of the day, the point output is very fixed.
There's some pretty cool data mines that happened recently, and we're going to talk about some of them. Bruce Banner is a 2/1 that has a 25% chance to Hulk out and turn into the Hulk whenever you skip a turn without energy. So, do you think, A, is this card just like Red Guardian fodder that gets Red Guardian to death 100% of the time? Or B, is this card a meaningful inclusion in like a high evolutionary deck?
Yeah, so firstly, the Red Guardian mention is interesting because I wasn't even really thinking about that until you mentioned it. And yes, when you play this card on turn 2, your opponent will be trying their best to Red Guardian it as soon as possible, because can you imagine like waiting a turn and then be like, oh, they're not gonna hit the 25%. I'm gonna Red Guardian next turn, and bam, 12-12.
Yeah.
Okay, but the High Evolutionary is the one that I was thinking about for a long time, because I feel like this is one of those cards that has like so little downside to play in High Evolutionary, right? Because you naturally just want to float energy every turn anyway. Floating energy is just part of your game plan, right? So if you float energy and then you once in a while get a chance to make a 12-12 out of nothing, then yeah, sure, why not? And it's, if I'm not wrong, it's about, you have like about like 3 to 4 chances, right? Turn 3, 4, 5, and maybe sometimes even turn 6, you might be floating energy. So it's like 3 to 4 turns of energy float, and I guess 3 to 4 times trying out for that 1 in 4, 25%. You get there often enough, I would say. I guess this card is very sad to lose to, but at the same time, I guess if your opponent isn't one of those like early snappers, like if it's me, right, I would slam this card and snap. Just because I want you to feel like the pain of losing to the 12-12. But if most people don't do that, So like the moment your thing transforms into a 12-12 and they haven't snapped yet, they can just leave. So like I guess there's a few ways to mitigate the pain of losing to this card. But I think one reason why I wanted to highlight this card is because I think this is one of the first, or if not the only card that the outcomes are so I mean, the result of a game is so varied based on this 25% RNG, right? Like this might be the first one actually.
Yeah, I will say, I've got a pitch for this card, and I think it's gonna make you very annoyed. Here's my pitch.
Okay.
It should turn into High Evo Hulk.
Oh my god, dude, that's way too strong.
Okay.
It's way too strong.
I
It's
think
more
it's
mold.
cool. Like it's an energy skill. It should turn into high evo Hulk. I
Guys,
get it. There's some balance issues, but it's cool. It should happen.
KM is not happy. He's not happy that you guys are just losing to a random
Yeah,
shop.
you
He
should
wants you
lose
guys
to
to
a
lose to a
random
random
16.
16.
Yes. Now, I believe you also had a problem with Galacta, daughter of Galactus. She's a 4/6. I believe she's supposed to be the season pass card for Rivals, but I'm not actually 100% on that. And she gives +3 power to the first card you play at a different location each turn. And
Yeah.
like, I kind of boring, right?
I mean, okay, so my issue with this card is that she's the daughter of Galactus. So obviously, I expect this to be like way more wow than like just this. Okay. For what it's worth, right? 4/6. The first card you play at another location reveals with +3 power. It's clearly meant to support letting Galactus go off, right? Like, because it literally states at another location +3 power. So this card is like the flavor text is to let Galactus like do his thing. But I'm pretty sure no one will play this to make Galactus go off even like more consistently, because this is straight up a mid-range card. This is straight up you just play a 4/6, or you play Zabu and play a 3/6. Play it on turn 3 and then. Yeah, and then like you just play cards thereafter, and then you get +3 on those cards, +3 on those cards. Like okay, so this is not really a complaint. It's more really like I'm a bit disappointed that like Galactus's daughter only does this. You know, like, I'm not saying that the effect is bad, but I just wish that it was like a different style of text. You know,
How does this work with Brood?
dude, I am not sure.
Because if this works with Brood the way I want it to work with Brood, this card's
basically
exciting.
everything, right?
Yeah, like if you could go like Galacta into Brood, then play a Shaw final turn of the game with a Silver Surfer. I mean, that seems pretty good to me. Like, I'm not saying
it's very Gwenpool.
Yes, it's very Gwenpool. This card is extremely Gwenpool, which also means this card might be extremely Arishem. Like, it's just 4/12 in that deck. You play it on turn 3. Just like, okay, thanks. You got a lot of points. Going great. Outside of that, though, I'm not sure what this card wants to be. I think a lot will depend on that Brood interaction. I remember people getting very mad when you couldn't make that work with Aranya, but Aranya has activate timing, and this has a different timing, and I really hope Brood works, because that will give this card a real hook to actually make sense in what could be an otherwise fairly hostile environment for her. So, Lambie, do you remember when I suggested at the end of the last episode that they buff Dr. Doom? Do you remember?
Well, they just made a new card, man, which is effectively kind of the same thing that we suggested.
It is. It's a Dr. Doom buff. Like, they were like, why would we buff Dr. Doom when we could sell the buff to Dr. Doom?
Yeah, how do you keep doing this, man? How do you keep getting it right? Like, you got the claw one right. I think you got another one right after the claw as well.
This does not count as me getting it right. This is like...
It's kind of...
This is not even close, dude. This is me getting it dead wrong. I was like, they should make the card Dr. Doom stronger, and they were like, we should sell a card that makes Dr. This is the opposite of being right about this. Doom 2099, a 4/2 with the ability to, at the end of every turn in which you play just one card, create a Doombot 2099, which is also, I believe, a 4/2 with an ongoing ability that buffs your other Doombots and Doom. Which means...
by +1.
By +1, yes. Which means, turn 4 this, turn 5 card, turn 6 Dr. Doom, bunch of points.
Yeah. Like, the interesting thing is, like, the Doombot from Dr. Doom is also gonna... If I'm not wrong, it gets the buff as well, right? Because it's also a Doombot.
That is my understanding. It should buff every Doombot and Doom, based on... It would be really stupid if that didn't work, so I'm gonna assume that it works.
Yeah, so this card's actually a lot of stats in one card. Like, and it also simplifies gameplay a lot, because the moment you play this card, you're just like mega incentivized to only play one card a turn, right? And which is very fine, because there are so many decks that literally just want to play a 4, a 5, and a 6 and end the game, you know. But what this card at this like stat line and cost is telling me, and after I'm scrolling through like a few of the other new cards that are coming out, there are so many good or like potentially good fours that are coming out into the game in the next 2 months, right? Zabu Stong's kind of super up. And this is probably the one card that benefits the hardest from Zabu, because for every turn that it's already out, it's
Yes.
one extra Doom bot. It's crazy. Can you imagine if you Zabu and play this on 3? That's an literal extra Doom bot because you played it one turn earlier. And one extra Doombot is just not one extra Doombot. One extra Doombot is a buff to every Doombot, you know? So I feel like this card really will incentivize a shift in the meta. Like, I don't think I'm overstating it. I really think this card will shift us back into a new Zabu meta. Back into a new, it's interesting to say back into a new. Yeah, okay, but anyway, back into the new Zabu meta, because this card is so important to play early. I think playing this early and then playing big card on 4, 5, 6 just like wins so many games. And I feel like we might gravitate a bit away from premium 3s into playing premium 4s, because Zabu incentivizes like you to play more 4s, you know. So like I'm very interested to see what happens in December. Like I think this card, outside of all the stuff we mentioned, like Galacta, Bruce Banner, blah blah blah, all this kind of like fun stuff, right? I think Doom 2099, yes, he looks cool as well. I think Doom 2099 is going to change Marvel Snap quite a bit.
I will say this for Doom 2099. It is an exciting card, but it is also a card that makes it very clear to me why Sandman no longer exists.
Exactly.
Exactly. Like the idea of someone playing Doom 2099 into Sandman into Doctor Doom
And
is just
then
like
Doom.
the most horrifying thing on earth. Just the worst possible timeline. So every time I've
I
asked
have a pitch.
for Sandman to come back, I'd like to formally apologize. I do not want that anymore.
It was me though. I was the one that wanted it back, but now I don't want it back ever again. After I see this data mines. Okay, no, but do you realize that like how should I put it? Like this Doom 2099. Yeah, I mean, yeah, because of this card, you can never bring Sandman back, right? You just can
It's
never
gone.
bring
He's
Sandman back.
deleted.
It's impossible. But like I feel like these kind of cards, like we always mention that people are not that upset when they lose to points.
Yeah.
Because like they see it coming. People are more upset when they cannot play the game. I feel like Doom 2099 might be the first time people will be upset to lose to points.
No way.
Because
like this deck's still gonna lose to bounce, man. Like it's still losing if like it's gonna be like 24 points on every lane, and it's going to lose to the deck that can put 30 in too.
No, I promise you, people will complain that, oh, your opponent played this on turn 3 after they played Zabu, and I couldn't do anything. They just play one card a turn, and it's plus 10 points every turn, plus 10 points or something. Like, I think this might be the first time, because it's so obvious that you are dying to this thing just because they had it, So I feel like this might be the first time people will be super upset when they lose to points.
Maybe. I wanted to talk about what I think, again, these are data mines, and I'm kind of guessing. Season pass card for the January season in the data mines was Iron Patriot, a 2/3 that adds a random 4-drop to your hand, and then if you're winning the location that he's at the next turn, it discounts that, a random 4, 5, or 6, it discounts that card by 4. So, when I saw this card, my eyes kind of lit up. I love 2/3's the draw card. But what this really got me moving towards was the following package in Wiccan. This is a little bit of a brain blast, so walk with me here. Do you remember like 2 weeks ago when people were playing Daredevil Negasonic in Wiccan? And that was like before people put the Surtur package in there, and so the Surtur sort of took its spot. I think you go back to Daredevil Negasonic in Wiccan. And I think what you do is you play Quicksilver, this card, Negasonic, as your 1, 2, 3. Get your free whatever it is that you're playing, or your cheap whatever it is, and then it doesn't even matter if you're Wiccaning, you just have like a free guy. And they're gonna be like they're incentivized to contest the Iron Patriot lane. So they put something good in that lane, it immediately gets blown up by Negasonic. You have a Quicksilver, so you always have a 1-drop. Like this feels like a real thing in a world where we're like Quicksilver and like 4 2s, and our 2s are like this Cable, Daredevil, and Hope Summers. And then our 3s are like Negasonic, probably Speed and like Copycat. And then our 4 is Wiccan. And then our 5, 6, just some big guys. Like that feels really compelling to me. And so like when I see a card like Iron Patriot, that is immediately where my brain goes.
Yeah. I was less high on this card than you because I guess I wasn't thinking of it from a Wiccan perspective. Like if you bring up the whole Wiccan perspective, it kind of does make sense as well. Because like Wiccan is one of those decks that like consistently always curves, right? So you kind of like almost always win when the
Yes.
location after you play. I think having consistency in winning a location after playing Iron Patriot is like I guess super important, you know. Then you can care a little bit less about what the random thing you get is
Yeah.
because it's free. It's more okay. I mean, if it's 6 cost, it's not free, but it costs 2, so you're not really complaining.
Yeah,
Right?
it's like
So
basically
like
free.
yeah,
like,
it's
let's be
basically free.
real. If you're gonna like a 2-cost Magneto, you're chill. Plus, you know, Wiccan
Yeah.
gives you that 2 energy anyway. You get to just like play, like, even if you get a 6, you get to play 6 plus 6 after a Wiccan. Like, there's just some really slick shit happening here.
Yeah, like I guess I was really concerned about like how you could build around this consistently. But I guess if your deck is just meant to
Yeah.
curve, that's just natural build
Yep.
around, right?
You
So
just get it for free.
and personally I'm a very big fan of weekend decks as well. Simply because I like extra energy. So this probably just fits very nicely. And I think you sold me again on the whole like if on turn 6 it's like 6 plus 6, right? Because you have 8 energy, you can go 6 plus 2. The second 6 for those that didn't catch on is the one that's discounted by Iron Patriot, which is from 6 to 2. So yeah, I guess at that point in time it doesn't really matter. I don't know, man.
You don't buy
I'm still
it.
a bit iffy.
You don't buy
I'm
it.
still a bit iffy. I'm still a little bit iffy. I guess because we just came off Doctor Doom 2099, which is clearly bought. Oh, I mean, you can get Doctor Doom 2099 for free from this as well, which is okay, fine. Maybe you sold me a little bit more.
Finally, I have an announcement to make. I have never used any borders in Marvel Snap. I rarely complete albums in Marvel Snap. I bought every one of those trippy surfer variants and I put matte black borders on
I
all
cannot
of
believe
them.
they let it be called Trippy Surfer in the game, by the way. But anyway, carry on.
I did that and now I'm playing Drippy Surfer. It's drip or drown and I'm
Yeah.
swimming right now. I have it all. So I will say I don't think that's the best surfer list. So the rule I made myself was if I want to replace a card, it has to be with a card that has a gold split. So like if I want to take one of these cards out, it has to be a card that like matches the aesthetic. Drippy Surfer is gonna live forever. All right, it's happening. I honestly thought about using like the black cosmic borders that you get for tokens on them. Like I have a lot of extra tokens. I thought about it. I still might
Give
go
them to
towards
me,
that.
man.
I can't do that. I wish that I could. That's just a personal announcement. I want to talk about borders and the fact that I finally use them. Everyone knows me. I'm the purple borders guy. I still will be because what I did was I set up such that every one of those cards still has a purple bordered alternative, but only in this deck they all use the matte black borders.
Right, so we always reserve topic 8 to be a bit more
Yeah.
like fun and chill and whatsoever. But I also feel like it's a bit relevant because I also want to mention something about borders, which the moment we thought about this topic, I suddenly had this realization.
Sure.
Do you guys realize that, okay, so there was a period of time like in the dark ages where there was like no border at all, there was no special border at all. But the moment it's like the coming of civilization and things just start growing so fast, that kind of thing. So basically what happened is, do you guys realize, because I noticed this, the moment they introduced the first set of borders, they just kept introducing more and more. Like all the borders came out all at once. We went from like no borders to like what 20 different borders in like a month plus. Like it's so much, man. Like I feel like I'm overwhelmed by like cosmetic bliss right now. And like honestly, I feel like that I can't even decide. Like I can't decide what I want to do with all these borders. Because like every time I open the shop, it's just bling, you know. Like honestly, it's a lot. Like they just literally flooded us with borders. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that like if you guys like have a particular favorite border, like can you just let me know in comments like what border works best with which card? Because I probably will like I'm pretty sure there are certain variants that kind of just look better with certain borders. You know, like I know Iron Man is like some red gold combination or something like that. Like that I can tell, but I'm pretty sure there are certain like nice combinations of cards that are a bit lesser known. Let me know in the comments what you guys think.
I will also say that it's drip or drown forever. Drip or drown,
Oh my
baby.
god.
Thank you so much for making it through that video. As always, I've been KMBest. He's been Lambie's series, and he's going to take us out of here.
Thank you so much for being here, guys. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye bye.